This video is about parts of an experiment. Make sure that you read through the handout version of the notes before you watch this video at least once, and then you can go back and forth and watch the video and read as many times as you need to. But do that first, so that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on before we get into this. You have 6 vocab words on the screen there, and our goal is to learn those 6 vocab words and be able to identify them in experiments and to design our own experiments correctly, including those things on the screen. So this experiment is going to end up being about rabbits. So I've got a bunch of rabbits on the screen that I just bought the other day. And I bought all these rabbits because I like how they jump, and I want good jumping rabbits. But you know, I got all the rabbits home, and they don't jump very well. They're bad jumping rabbits. They're terrible. I'm upset, and I'm trying to figure out how do I get them to jump higher. That's my problem. So my problem is, how do I get my rabbits to jump higher? Anytime you have a problem, you can come up with an experiment to try to find out the answer to it. So that's what we're doing here. What will my experiment be? Well, the first thing I'll do when I design an experiment is come up with a hypothesis. If I do this, then I think this might happen because, and then I give a reason. So on this screen, this is what I came up with. If I have my rabbits wear Nike Air Jordans, then I think they will jump higher, because Air Jordans are really good basketball shoes. So that's my hypothesis, and we'll go back to that to kind of pick out the parts of it. But that's what I came up with. So there's my rabbit. So I'm going to design my experiment now. There's one rabbit. Let me make this rabbit easy to reproduce here so we can get enough to do an experiment. You don't want to just test with only one rabbit. So I'll get a bunch of rabbits here, and so if I really want to know, do Nike Air Jordans help make my rabbit jump higher? What I'm going to do is I'm going to give some of my rabbits Nike Air Jordans, half of them, and I'm going to give the other half no Nike Air Jordans. They're going to go barefoot. So I'm going to take my shoes here, and let's get these out here to all my rabbits. There's 2 for that one. Okay, so you get the idea. Half of my rabbits are going to have Nike Air Jordans, and the other half are not going to have them. So I'll have them both jump, both groups jump, maybe 10 times each. I'll have a spotter measuring how high they jump, and then we'll find out what happens. If the group with Nike Air Jordans jumps higher on average, then we'll say that the shoes work. If the other group jumps higher, we'll say the shoes definitely don't work. And if they're the same, then maybe the shoes just don't help. So let's go ahead and figure out these vocab words that we showed in the first screen. They're all included here. We've included all those different things. So the first thing that we need to figure out is, what was my independent variable? An independent variable is something that the experimenter, and I'm the experimenter because I came up with this experiment, something that the experimenter changed on purpose. And what I changed on purpose was using shoes, using Air Jordans, versus in the past when my rabbits didn't use Air Jordans. So my independent variable was giving the rabbits Air Jordans. Now, what is my dependent variable? A dependent variable is what the independent variable might cause to change. What do I think using Air Jordans for my rabbits might cause to change? So my dependent variable in this case was the jumping, right? I wanted to find out if using Air Jordans would cause the jumping of my rabbits to be different. So a dependent variable is what the independent variable might cause to change. It's dependent on the independent variable. And in this case, it was how high my rabbits jump? So that's what I was trying to find out. Now, if we go back to our hypothesis and see what we wrote back when, your hypothesis will always have the independent and dependent variables in there if you write it well. If I have my rabbits wear Air Jordans, that's what I'm changing on purpose. Wearing Air Jordans is my independent variable. Then I think they will jump higher. How high they jump is my dependent variable. So I'm going to circle that dependent variable, jumping or jump higher. So my next question is, what is my experimental group and what is my control group? What are my two different groups? If we go back and look, we'll remember that we did have two groups. We had one group that got Air Jordans and one group that didn't. So the question is, which one is which? My experimental group is the group that I used the independent variable on. It's like I'm experimenting on it. So my experimental group is the group that got the Air Jordans. So experimental group, the group of rabbits with Air Jordans. That is my experimental group. What's my control group? It's got to be the other group, right? The control group is a group that we do not use the independent variable on. We always have one control group because we always have to compare our experimental group or groups to something else. So our control group in this case is going to be the rabbits without Air Jordans. So we'll go back one more time and look. On the left, experimental group, they got the independent variable used on them. On the right, the control group, we did not change anything with that group. We did not use the independent variable on them. And then we compare the two and we find out which group is better, or do they do about the same. So we'll pretend in this experiment, I ran it, we measured, we had each rabbit jump twice, and we'll say the experimental group, the group that got Air Jordans, jumped 10 feet on average, and the control group, no Air Jordans, only jumped 2 feet on average. So it turns out that I was right. Using Air Jordans will cause my rabbits to jump higher. One last thing that hopefully I did right in this experiment, did I have constants? Constants are those things that you have to keep the same about both groups. So you just keep them constant. Constant means the same. So if we go back to our screen, I could list on and on many different examples of constants. Those two groups there, when you look at them, the only thing you should notice different about them is whether they have shoes or not. The only thing different is my independent variable. Anything else you can think of is a constant. So I'm going to have both groups have the same size rabbit ears. They're going to be the same size rabbits. They're going to be the same age rabbits. They're going to be in the same shape. They're going to have the same eyes. They're going to have the same type of fur. They're going to be the same breed. They're going to have the same lifestyle. They're going to like the same movies. We're going to go on and on and on. Everything that is the same about them is a constant. So a constant is anything you keep the same about both groups, which is everything except the independent variable.